I'm going to show you guys the fastest way to level in the entire game. This is what the people who made it to 100 first, this is the cave that they used, and I'm going to explain to you how to use it and how they used it and ways you can use it if you're not in the perfect setup. So this cave is going to be right here. It's Champion's Demise. This place is broken, and they may patch it at some point, because another one that people used that was almost as good was this one over here called Moggin's Works. And that one was really good, but then they patched it and they nerfed it into the ground. It's one of the worst dungeons in the game now, which was kind of crazy. They over-nerfed it. But anyway, this place right here, Champion's Demise, this is over in the Dry Steppes in Untamed Scraps. And there's the town. You can get nearby so you can get here faster whenever you want to go here. So what you'll do is you'll do it as a party. But you can also do it solo. It's not as fast solo, but it's still insanely good. It's one of the best dungeons. So what you'll do is you'll play on the hardest difficulty you have. So World Tier 3, World Tier 4, whatever you got. And then in your party of 4, you need to go have 2 people who go together in one direction. Another guy goes in another direction. Another guy goes in another direction. So ideally, you have at least 2 people who can totally handle themselves, like barbarians with tons of barriers and things who can't die, basically, who can handle themselves and go on their own corner or their own side. And then if there's 2 people who are weaker in your party who can't quite handle it on their own, have those 2 go together, basically. And what you'll do is these really big pools in here, but also the reason you split up like that is this dungeon is literally perfect for a party. And the reason for that is that once you get into this dungeon, you get to this point right here, right out of the gate. You just walk up to this area, and this dungeon splits off into 3 directions like this. Each one dead ends. So that's why if you're in a party, ideally you just split off and have one guy go one way, one guy go another way, and the last 2 who are the weakest go another way. And whenever like the first person just clears their end, they tell everyone, and then one person leaves the party, it kicks everybody out, and then you join a new party of a person who joined, and then it puts everyone back in. You reset real fast. And that's the way it's a party, and that's the absolute fastest way to level in the game at the time of making this video. That's what literally the people who beat it and got to 100 first, that's what they did. But as solo, you can still farm it, and it's still insanely good. So as a solo player, what you'll do is you'll just run off into one direction, and then you'll have to painstakingly come back, which is kind of annoying, but it's fine. And the way that you generally farm this is you want to run ahead and grab multiple groups like this, and then come back to the beginning of them before they de-aggro, and then just AoE farm them down and kill everything. And then once you've killed the bulk of the enemies, especially the elites, then you'll move on to the next group. Now, something really good about this dungeon is that there are a lot of elites, so because there are a lot of elites, you'll be able to get a lot of gear, a lot of opportunities at finding legendary gear. If you're playing on high enough difficulty, ancestral gear, sacred gear, that type of thing. But yeah, you just grab like this. And the big things to watch out for, guys, spiders and shamans. So the things that can kill you at the higher difficulties once you get to Nightmare and Torment are the spiders and the shamans. And the reason for this is because the shamans will channel into an enemy, and it'll make little red orbs go everywhere. And the red orbs you might not even pay attention to, but when you're playing on you might not notice them. They're just hard to notice. But when you play on a higher difficulty, those same things, those same orbs that you are ignoring on lower difficulties, they just hit for an insane amount of damage. So that's like super obnoxious. Like that's the thing that'll kill you. And then the other thing is the spiders will crowd control you, and you won't be able to move. So that is also another issue you'll run into, is the spiders. And of course, when I'm recording the video and trying to show you, of course, I get the random butcher spawn, like super insanely rare. Never had him in here before. I was trying to get the treasure goblin. He beat my ass. But anyway, so yeah, you'd go through, and a lot of these loops, so you'll go down, you'll loop around, come back up, and then just do all 3 as a solo player. And then when you're done, you'll just click on the entrance on the map to leave the dungeon. And what you can do as a solo player to reset it is once you get out, you can leave game and come back in. And most of the time, leaving game and coming back in will put you on a new layer. And on a new layer, the dungeon will be reset. Now, sometimes when you leave game here, it'll kick you back to the town, which is really weird. But most of the time, it's fine, and you'll just kick out right in front of the dungeon. Now, some people have said that you can teleport to a town and teleport back, and it'll reset the dungeon. I've literally never had that work. I've tried that, and it literally has never worked for me. But if you can find a way to make that work, then you can also do that. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong when I tried it. I tried like 30 different times, never got it to work a single time. But people always say it, so I'm really confused. We got one of the times we got kicked back to town. And it kicks you to a random ass town too. Like, it's not even near where we were. But if that does happen, you just teleport back. But like the vast majority of the time, it'll just log you back in right in front of the dungeon. And then you'll go back into the dungeon and you'll just farm it, you know, again and again and again and again. So that's it, guys. That's like the best leveling in the game with decent legendary drops too. Again, that's what the people who made it to 100 first, that was the dungeon that they were farming in torment mode. So you just get some legendaries, get strong enough, and then you just go there at the highest difficulty you can handle, ideally in a party, but you can also do it solo, like I said. Now, obviously, some classes are going to be better than other classes for this. So, you know, Sorceress, Sorcerer, Barbarian, Necromancer are all really good for that, obviously. But, you know, you just do the best you can. Some people are like, for some of the XP farms I've shown in this channel, will be like, well, I'm such and such class, so, you know, Druid, for example, which sucks early game in particular, and they'll be like, well, you know, this doesn't work for me, I can't farm it. And I'm like, well, it's better to have a big AoE farm and farm it whichever way you can, or how slow it goes, than to just kill one enemy at a time. You're still going to farm faster if you just, you know, find your own way to do it at your own pace, even if it's slower than another class would farm it. So that's why this type of farm is so good, man. These AoE farms in an area like this are actually so insanely good. There's lots of legendaries as well, and it's just a really good farm overall. Another thing to keep in mind that I want to make sure is clear, because I didn't actually point it out, this objective, don't do it. You literally just clear everything else, or as much as you can of everything else, and then reset the dungeon. You never want to do the objective. It's really slow to actually go through and do the objective. Don't ever do that. Also, you want to get as high a world tier as you can, but don't go into world tier if you're under leveled. Like, when you first get world tier 3, it forces everything to a minimum of level 53. So you can get it at level 50 potentially, like I did, but you don't actually want to do it until you're like closer to that level, unless you're playing in a party or you really know what you're doing and can handle it just fine. But you do not want to run into this, going into this, unless you're, you know, a similar level at least. One thing I highly recommend before doing this, if you're doing this on Nightmare or Torment, especially solo, is you want to go and get a bunch of good legendaries before you do this, because otherwise you're just going to be wasting your time, basically, because you'll not be doing enough damage or you'll be dying too easily. So you definitely want to go look at, like, I have a video on, like, a legendary farming, sort of an exploit, and you could check that out, and that would help out a lot. And then I have other videos on farming legendaries. You can also go to the PvP zone to farm legendaries. That's another good one. So it's just whatever, though. You just got to get legendaries before you do this and some good abilities, get a good build going, or else it's not going to be as good. You've got to get it to where it's fairly easy for the difficulty you're playing on, or else you're just going to lose time. You'd be better off going slower in a more casual dungeon. But either way, guys, I hope this video helped you out. This is a dungeon you need to be looking for. You need to be finding a good way to farm this if you want to go fast. And again, if you're in a party, that's going to be the absolute fastest way. But it's definitely not the only way. You can do it solo, and it's still a very, very good dungeon with very good XP rates and a fast way to hit level 100 in Diablo 4.